Today, let us start human respiratory system. This is the diagram of human respiratory system. The parts of human respiratory system are nose, nasal cavity, pharynx, epiglottis, glottis, larynx, trachea or windpipe. These two are bronchi and these small branches are bronchioles and these are air sacs. Now let us study one by one. Let us talk about nostrils. There are a pair of nostrils. These nostrils open into nasal cavities. Nasal cavities. There are nasal cavities. These nasal cavities are separated by a septum. Septum. So what is septum? Septum divides both the nasal cavities. Nasal cavities are lined by mucus layer. Mucus layer. This mucus layer secretes mucus, and in the nasal cavities there are fine hairs. This mucus layer along with fine hairs filter air when we inhale. So, air filtration. The air we inhale contains dust, some harmful substances. So, they are to be filtered. So, therefore, to filter this dust and foreign substances, this mucus layer as well as these hairs present in nasal cavity help you a lot. So this is what happens in nasal cavities. Then nasal cavities open into pharynx through internal nostrils or internal nares. Now let us talk about pharynx. Pharynx is a junction. Why is it called junction? Because this is esophagus. Esophagus takes its origin from pharynx, and even windpipe takes its origin from pharynx. So both esophagus and trachea or windpipe open into pharynx. Therefore, pharynx is a junction. Pharynx leads into larynx. So before going to larynx, let us talk about what is glottis. See, this glottis is a slit, a narrow passage, a narrow opening. This opens into larynx, and this glottis is supported by, covered by epiglottis. What is epiglottis? Epiglottis is a cartilaginous structure which help in closing glottis when we take in food material or when we swallow water. Any liquid, when we swallow any liquid, this glottis is closed by epiglottis. And when we don't take food or when we don't swallow any liquid, this glottis is always open. So air passage happens and air passes into lungs. So this is very important from your examination point of view. What is the function of epiglottis? Now let us talk about larynx. This larynx is the first part of trachea. First part of windpipe or trachea. So this is trachea or windpipe. Windpipe means through which air passes. Now let us talk about this larynx is called voice box. Why is it called voice box? Because there are vocal cords. There are vocal cords. When we exhale air, vocal cords vibrate and they produce sound. That is why it is called voice box. Now then, let us talk about windpipe. See, this windpipe passes through the chest cavity, and this windpipe is supported by C-shaped cartilaginous rings. Very important question for your exams. So it passes through chest and it is supported. Support. How is it supported? C-shaped cartilaginous rings support trachea, which help C-shaped cartilaginous rings support trachea, protect trachea from collapsing. So this is very important. Which help trachea from collapsing? C-shaped cartilaginous rings. See, these are C-shaped cartilaginous rings which protect trachea from collapsing. And in the chest cavity, this trachea divides into two bronchi. Bronchus singular, bronchi plural. Right bronchus, left bronchus. Both bronchi enter into two different lungs. Left bronchus into left lung, right bronchus into right lung. Now let us talk about lungs. 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 There are a pair of lungs. A pair of lungs in the chest cavity. Protection. These lungs are protected by a double-walled layer called pleura. Pleura. Around lungs, there is a double-walled layer called pleura which protects lungs. And there are also ribs in protecting lungs. Then, right lung has 3 lobes, left lung has 2 lobes. So, right lung is larger. Left lung is smaller. Left lung is smaller. What is the reason behind it? Left lung has 2 lobes, right lung has 3 lobes. The reason behind this is to large heart slightly towards left side, some space is required. So that is why left lung has 2 lobes, right lung has 3 lobes. Then lungs, the lungs are made up of alveoli or air sacs. Air sacs or alveoli. See, let us understand here. This bronchus divides into bronchioles. See, these are bronchioles. In lungs, each bronchus divides into so many bronchioles. Each bronchiole end with air sac. So here you have to draw air sacs. Air sacs. So what are air sacs? Air sacs are structural units of lungs. Why are they called structural units? Because alveoli make the structure of lungs. Then alveoli are functional units of lungs. Functional units. Why are they called functional units? Because exchange of gases takes place in air sacs only, in alveoli only. That is why these alveoli are structural units of lungs and functional units of lungs. So this is very important. Let us understand what is breathing cycle. Breathing cycle consists of two stages. Inspiration. What is inspiration? Inhalation, taking in of air. And expiration. What is expiration? Exhalation, leaving out air is expiration. To inspire and expire, ribs and diaphragm play a major role. Let us understand during inspiration what happens. We lift ribs when we inspire, that is lifting ribs. And when we lift ribs, diaphragm flattens, flattening diaphragm. When we lift ribs and flatten diaphragm, chest cavity increases. Chest cavity increases. When chest cavity increases, air pressure decreases. Air pressure decreases. As a result, we inhale air from the atmosphere into lungs. So this is what happens during inspiration. Now let us talk about what happens during expiration. Ribs relax. Diaphragm also relaxes. Diaphragm acquires its dome shape, original shape. Then chest cavity decreases. Air pressure increases. Air pressure increases. As a result, from lungs, air is sent out into the atmosphere. So these are the two stages of breathing cycle, very important for your examination. Now let us understand exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide. Let us understand how this oxygen from air moves into blood. Exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide. Very important. See, this exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide takes place in air sacs. Air sacs or alveoli. Alveoli. They are the structural and functional units of lungs that we have discussed already. See this is air sac. Air sac. Air sacs are richly supplied with arterioles and venules. Collectively you can write air sacs are richly supplied with blood vessels. See, this is the cavity of air sac. See, this is arteriole. Arteriole. From heart, blood with carbon dioxide is sent to lungs for purification through pulmonary artery. So at air sacs, pulmonary artery divides into arterioles. So through these arterioles, blood with CO2, it means deoxygenated blood without oxygen and with carbon dioxide. So this blood contains carbon dioxide. This carbon dioxide moves into the cavity of air sac, diffuses into the cavity of air sacs. So this is how carbon dioxide is separated from blood. Now the same air sac is supplied with venules. Arterioles or venules are interconnected. So this is arteriole and this is venule. So this venule, into venule, oxygen from the cavity of air sac diffuses. So this is how oxygen is exchanged at air sacs. So oxygen which is present in the cavity of air sac diffuses into the blood of venule. So these venules combine to form vein, pulmonary vein, and this vein takes oxygenated blood. See, this is here, blood becomes oxygenated. It means oxygen gets mixed up with blood. That is called oxygenated blood with oxygen. So vein, pulmonary vein carries this oxygenated blood from lungs to left auricle, that we will discuss in our coming class. So this is how exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide takes place in air sacs. In blood, in RBC particularly, hemoglobin is present. What is hemoglobin? Hemoglobin is a respiratory pigment, very important for your exam, which is respiratory pigment. Hemoglobin, respiratory pigment. What is pigment actually? Define a pigment. A pigment is a molecule which imparts color, is a pigment. So what is the color hemoglobin imparts to blood cells? Red color. So this type of cells are red blood corpuscles or red blood cells. Respiratory pigment hemoglobin is not ordinary, it is a pigment. It is a respiratory pigment because it helps in respiration, transportation of oxygen and carbon dioxide. Let us study how. See, this hemoglobin combines with oxygen, result in the formation of oxyhemoglobin. Oxyhemoglobin, HbO2, oxyhemoglobin. This oxyhemoglobin is carried to all cells of our body. At cells, from oxyhemoglobin, oxygen is separated, used by the cells for carrying out cell respiration, and hemoglobin becomes free. Again it comes to air sacs through blood, then again it carries oxygen. So in this way, hemoglobin plays a major role in the transportation of oxygen. Now let us talk about transportation of carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide. See, carbon dioxide dissolves in plasma. What does it mean? Dissolves in plasma. Hemoglobin does not play a major role in transporting carbon dioxide from cells to lungs. Of course, least percentage. But maximum carbon dioxide is transported in dissolved state in plasma. It means plasma consists of more than 80% water. So it dissolves in water and it is transported. So this is how carbon dioxide is transported. Now let us understand lungs infections. Lungs infections. What does infection mean? Entry of disease causing organisms. Entry of disease causing germs, bacteria or virus or fungi is infection. What is lungs infection? Entry of disease causing organisms into lungs is lungs infection. That is definition. Now, let us talk about how lungs get infected. See, particularly upper respiratory tract. What is upper respiratory tract? Trachea or windpipe, bronchi and bronchioles. These trachea, bronchi and bronchioles are provided with cilia. Cilia. These cilia are fine hair-like structures. What is the function of cilia? The function of cilia is prevent the entry of germs, foreign materials like harmful substances into lungs. Okay, now let us talk about destruction of cilia. How cilia get destructed? Destruction of cilia. Try to understand. Smoking destroys cilia. It is smoking. When cilia get destructed, these germs, foreign materials, harmful chemical substances enter into lungs, and as a result, lungs get infected. So it may lead to lungs cancer also. So this is how lungs get infected. Let us understand exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide in fish. In fish, respiratory organs are gills. These gills are covered by a cartilaginous plate, that is operculum. Very important for your exam. What is the cartilaginous plate which covers gills? That is operculum. Fish swallow water into oral cavity. Oral cavity. From oral cavity, water passes over gills. The walls of the gills are richly supplied with blood vessels. Walls of gills are richly supplied with blood vessels. When water passes over gills, whatever oxygen that is present in dissolved form in water is taken up by blood, and whatever carbon dioxide is there in blood, it comes into water. So this is how exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide happens. The next concept is the rate of breathing in aquatic animals is faster than terrestrial animals. The reason: rate of breathing in aquatic animals it is faster than terrestrial animals. What is the reason? The only reason is percentage of dissolved oxygen in water is less. That is why breathing rate is more. Percentage of dissolved oxygen is low. So that is why the rate of breathing in aquatic animals is faster than terrestrial animals. Now let us understand the need of respiratory mechanism in terrestrial animals. Need of respiratory mechanism. What is the need? The only reason is to move air in and out of lungs. Respiratory mechanism is required to move air in and out of lungs. Respiratory mechanism is required. In our previous video, I explained in detail the role of ribs and diaphragm in inhalation and exhalation. The next concept is need of respiratory passages. Need of respiratory passages. What is the need of respiratory passages? Because lungs are not in direct contact with atmospheric air. That is why respiratory passages are required. Lungs are not in direct contact with air. Direct contact with atmospheric air. That is why respiratory passages are required. The next concept is respiratory organs are placed inside the body. What is the reason? Respiratory organs are placed inside the body. What is the reason? The reason is lungs are very delicate structures. That is why in order to protect delicate lungs, lungs are placed inside the body of organisms.